Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges. Joining me today, we've got a very special guest. She is the number 9 ranked recruit for the class of 2022. She is committed to NC State. She's a junior national champion. She's an Arizona State champion. And we've got a lot to talk about today. Please welcome Kennedy Noble. Kennedy, how's it going?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm excited. You know, as we just discussed off camera, we've got a lot to talk about today. So let's start with the current. You recently committed to NC State just 10 days ago. Nope, 12 days ago. Got my, quarantine's got my timeline all mixed up. How have things been going for you just in the past couple weeks? You know, obviously everyone's in such a different spot with this COVID-19 pandemic and quarantine. What's life for you been like these last couple weeks?
Yeah, it's been really interesting because obviously coronavirus is still a thing, and but it's getting to the point where people are kind of ignoring it and like going about their daily life a little bit more. And so that's just weird. But it's been good. I've been getting really good pool time. I'm practicing from 5 to 7 every morning, Monday through Friday. So it's a little brutal to wake up at like 4:30 every morning. But it's worth the pool time. I mean, it's better than nothing, like, for sure. I'm so grateful for it. And then committing to NC State has been so exciting. I never expected to commit so early. I would think that I was going to wait a bit longer. And I wasn't even looking at NC State like in the beginning. Like, that wasn't really like one of my top schools. And I even told Coach Braden that. And he's like, you know what, like, let's just do a few calls and see how you feel. And I'm like, all right, like, sure. And every single call I had with him and the coaching staff and even the team, it got better and better. Like, they just surprised me every single time. Not surprised me, I would say I just loved it. Like, I loved the school more and more every single time I talked to them. And it was just my vibe. Like, I just feel like I'd fit in so well. I'm already talking to the swimmers on the team, like texting them and stuff. And it's awesome. I'm like, I have no doubts at all. Like, it's great.
That sounds like a really great feeling. It's great to have that feeling of, all right, this is where I belong. This is where I fit. I've talked to a lot of kids in your class, kids in the class above you, lots of high school recruits. And I mean, it seems like it's just all about where each individual fits best. And if you find your fit, it seems like a good place to be in.
Yeah, for sure.
So, it's interesting because you mentioned, I never would have thought that I would commit this early. And,
Mm-hmm.
this certainly a trend we've seen in the past few years of, juniors committing in the fall of their junior year, as opposed to maybe the norm, 5 or so years back was seniors committing in the fall of their senior season after they would go on their recruiting trips. What was that process like for you of not even committing early, but just looking early, starting that process? I'm assuming, summer of your sophomore year.
Yeah, no, it was a bit overwhelming. I would say I came in, like, I knew what I wanted, but I didn't really know what I want. And after like having calls with different schools and stuff, I started picking out like the things that I really loved and wanted in a program. And that was sports psychology. I love sports psychology and having like majoring in psychology, and obviously having a great swim team, just a great vibe. I it was just great. Like I knew, like I don't know. It was great. Yeah. I pretty much, it was a really weird year. Just hearing from my teammate, Jaden, he had his recruiting process 2 years ago, and he got to go on his visits, like his official visits, go to football games and see everyone in person. And it's a lot different for me. And so I didn't know what to expect going into it. And thank the Lord for technology that has really, really helped throughout this, to be able to see people's faces. Lots of Zoom calls for sure. I'm like living on Zoom.
You're telling me.
Yeah. The Zoom calls have really helped because I get to see people's faces, and that honestly tells a lot. And I've had Zoom calls with the swim team and stuff, and it's like a sleepover virtually, you know. It's super fun though. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and honestly, I can't imagine that people went through pandemics like this, 100 years ago when there wasn't this kind of technology. It's like, how did different times, man. But you mentioned, that when you started that recruiting process, when you started just your process of looking at schools, it was a bit overwhelming. What tools did you kind of find that helped you make it less overwhelming, just organize it a little more and say, okay, let's take this one step at a time, and I can, get through this process?
Yeah. I'm that kind of person who loves lists. I'm super OCD. And so I would say it was a lot more scrambled than I thought I would be throughout this process. But I like to write things out. And so like during every single call, I would write things out, like any information that was important, or pretty much everything. I wrote so much. But especially in the beginning, I just listened to everything, like everything they had to say, everything that they offer. And I wrote it all out and pretty much like listened to myself, like what caught my eye more and what didn't. And that's how I figured out what I liked and what I didn't. And so then I made another list saying what I wanted, because I kind of figured out what I wanted as I was starting the recruiting process. And because I didn't know much about like how specified you can get in your major, or like that kind of stuff, or internships. And I started just writing down lists of what I really, really want in a school. And then I just went through that checklist, and I got down to a few schools that had everything. And it just came down to I'm a super vibe person. I love like reading people's vibes and stuff. And so that's literally what it came down to. Like, where am I going to fit in the most? Like, where am I going to really enjoy my time?
I think that is really helpful for anyone who is starting that recruiting process, especially at such a, at such a young age. You're 15, you're 16, you're just discovering who you are as a human being.
Yeah.
And like you said, that can be a really overwhelming process. And just listing out, okay, let's think about me. Let's think about what I want, what's going to fit best for me, and what I'm looking for. And I think that's super helpful. And it's cool to hear that you were able to do that, kind of compartmentalize some of those things, and ultimately, find a school you think that you're going to fit well, you're going to vibe well with.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So let's get a little bit of your history. Kennedy Noble, your first name's apparently Helen. Where'd Kennedy come from? Is that your middle name?
Yes, it's my middle name. So I'm named after my great grandma, and her name's Helen Kennedy. And I don't know. I didn't choose to go by Kennedy. My parents just called me Kennedy growing up. I'm gonna like expose myself. I didn't know my name was Helen until like I was like 5. I was never called Helen. And I didn't even think about my middle name. I guess when you're 5, you're not like thinking about that. I don't know. I don't know what's right or wrong, but I always went by Kennedy. And I just Helen's kind of an old name. I don't know. I think I prefer Kennedy a lot more. No hate towards Helen, but yeah, I like my
I think that makes sense. That's a funny story. You didn't even know your name was Helen until 5. I remember being somewhere between the ages of 5 and 10, and I knew my middle name, but I wasn't 100% on how to spell it, because it's like my parents had like referred to me as, my middle name is Hawkins, so I'm Coleman Hawkins. I was named after this jazz musician named Coleman Hawkins, and I had never written down the name Hawkins, so it was kind of like, I guess if I need to write this, I can, but we're just gonna wing it and see if it turns out right or not. So I totally relate to that problem. So Kennedy Noble, when did you start in the pool? When did you start swimming?
So I did rec swimming when I was like 8, probably. Like I started when I was around 8. I feel like I started a little later, especially with rec swimming. Like people start when they're like 4 and stuff. Well, my parents literally like, they just put me in the pool for safety. They wanted me to be able to know how to swim. So I do like lessons, like just water safety. We had pools. There's literally every Arizona home has a pool. So that was super important to my parents. And which is great. And so I didn't really like, I don't remember that. Obviously I was super little. They would throw me in the pool when I was like a baby, just like making sure I can swim. And like scream for help. And then I got into rec swimming when I was a little older, and I did it with my friends. It was just a summer like thing to do. Like everyone in Arizona does it. Everyone does rec swimming here. It's so hot. So why not swim? Because that's the only thing you can do when you're outdoors here. It's like 115 degrees every day. So we did rec swimming every summer. I was so competitive. Like I would get so nervous before my races and stuff. Like I took it like so seriously. Like it was, my mom would be like, calm down. It's like just a rec meet. Like it's supposed to be fun. Like you're not supposed to be like crazy serious about it. I'm like, no, I have to win. Like I loved it. And so my mom's like, okay, you need to go into club swimming. We need to like make your ego not be as big about swimming. And so they put me into club swimming when I was like 11, and I did it for about a month, and I had a really, really tough coach. Shout out Coach Cindy. She was very, very tough. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna have to do this every day. Like swimming is so hard. And so I quit for about a year, and then I went back into it like before I turned 12. And I went back into it, and I was like, you know what, like I'll be fine. Like if I could just get through it, start getting better and like figure it out, because that's just how swimming is when you're trying new things. Like it's all about repetition, and you like find like comfort in the uncomfortable. And that's what I've like really learned like growing up. And so I moved through like my groups and stuff. And I ended up really enjoying it. Like especially with like my coach Ryan, like he made me love swimming. Like I love it. I don't know what I'd do without it.
Yeah, and so you talked about your coach Ryan. Ryan Kent, he was the head age group coach at the YMCA Westside Silver Fens in Goodyear, Arizona. He died nearly 2 years ago. Today it's almost been 2 years since he was your coach as a younger child. He coached Cal All-Americans Tyler Messerschmidt, Amy Bilquist. He coached Asia Mines, and he coached Kennedy Noble. And so tell me about what made Ryan such a special coach and how he developed, your love for swimming so much.
Yeah, he was like, oh my gosh, anyone who meets him, you're just like, he's like the best human being on the planet Earth. Like, he's so selfless. He's so like invested in everyone. Like, he had such an individualized relationship with every swimmer that he's had. Like, he treated his swimmers like his babies. Like, that was just like, he was so invested in it. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like, focus on yourself sometimes, like talk about yourself and all that kind of stuff. Cause he was just like, he wanted to just know everything. Like, he didn't know my sister much. Like, my sister didn't come to practice. Like, she didn't come, she has her own things. And anytime she came over, like to watch a swim meet or something, he like knew everything about it. Just like, how's tennis? How is like school doing? Like, I heard you're like in choir and all this kind of stuff. Like, he's just so invested in everyone's lives. And I think it just having that like feeling of just being so cared for. And he just only wanted the best for everybody. He was always right. I will say that. He was like always right. And like, if I'm just like not feeling great at practice, he's like, some days he'll be like, okay, like, let's take this day off, or like, no, like, you're fine. Like, let's go. Like, I always end up having like the best practices that day. Like, when I'm just like, cause he knows what to say. I loved it. I just love the way he coached. Like, I'm that kind of person who's super ambitious in practice. Like, he'll just call out like a crazy time, like at the end of practice. I'm like, all right, like, we'll see. And I'll go like literally the time or 2 seconds under it, like that kind of stuff. And I was like 13, like going best times in practice. It was so fun. Like, he just made practice so fun. But it was also, we worked so hard. Like, and that's what I learned, being comfortable with the uncomfortable. Just like the repetition and the just really getting into those sets and just pushing through it. Like, we would do like my favorite sets. He made my favorite sets like 10 200s free best average. Like, now I love that stuff. And so, well, depends on the day, but he just taught me how to just like trust the process and just love swimming. And have a really good relationship with your teammates. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Wow. I'm a little taken aback that, that was a really heartfelt, testimonial. And I mean, obviously, we reported, when Coach Ryan passed a couple of years ago, Amy Bilquist had, made a website commemorating the impact he left on his swimmers, and she, also gave a very heartfelt testimonial. And I mean, it seems like he had a very big impact on a lot of young swimmers.
Yes, for sure.
And so, how have you been able to carry that forward, once you pass through Ryan's group into the group you're in now?
Yeah. So, no, it was a little bit of a hard transition. He passed away like 2 months after I moved up into senior elite on our team. And I guess I'm like grateful for that, because it, like, obviously, oh my gosh, it like hurt so bad. But I think it was just like, I don't know. I just went into the group and I'm like, okay, like, I think he was just, I don't know. I don't even know how to think about it, but it was a bit of a hard transition, just because I would go and sit down on the pool deck every day after my senior elite practice, because I wasn't in his group anymore, obviously. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, Ryan. Like, I don't know, I'm gonna get through this. And because Darian, my coach now, he does totally different training than Ryan did. And it was Darian's a lot more specified. And I did everything in Ryan's group, and I kind of still do. And it was just really hard not having him anymore, because I was so close to him. I like told him everything. Like, he was like my best friend. I literally told him everything. And so I'm like, I felt so empty, like going, and I kind of lost a bit of motivation after that happened, and it was a bit tough. And then after a few months of just like kind of grieving and that kind of stuff, like, and everyone supported each other so much. It brought everyone so close together. It made us so unified. And that's what really helped me bounce back. And I'm sure that goes for a lot of other people on the swim team. It definitely like really put this like, I don't know, vibe. I'll say that again, like vibes that just like everyone's like, hey, we're all going through the same thing and we're just gonna help each other get through it and come out of it even better. And so we've had that attitude ever since then. Like we're still like that. Like we all work our butts off every day together, and it just helps knowing that we're all going through the same thing, and there's no competition of like who's like sad or whatever, like that kind of stuff. Like everyone's just there for each other. And I just love that. And that we do get that reputation for a team. Like if anyone visits our team, like we're like the closest team they've ever met. Like we're a really close team. And I'm so grateful for that. So it's really helped like transitioning into senior elite. It's been, I've been better than ever. Like it's great.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned gratitude when you started, answering that question. And I mean, it seems like what Coach Ryan gave his swimmers was the ability to keep growing and keep moving forward when they left his group, without him. And obviously, you don't want to lose him in life. But I think the sign of a truly great coach is the ability to give their swimmers the tools to, survive and thrive without them.
Definitely. And it was, yeah, he has definitely had all of us grow as people, like outside of the pool, like literally it's insane. Like, and I think like after he passed away, I'm pretty like we all were like so sad. We were like having a memorial and everything, and we're like, you know what, Ryan's probably thinking like, get your butt back in the water, like you're fine, like you're fine, like just keep swimming. Like that's just what I thought of, because he's like, hey, like you're good. Like he made us really strong people, like in the water and mentally. And it's great.
And I mean, I also do think that's a testament to his coaching of how well you all were able to support each other. I mean, like you said, it sounds like a very tight-knit family. And I think when you go through a loss like that and the grieving process, it's important to not just bottle it in and keep it to yourself, but really let your community, let your support system do just that, support you. And it sounds like he set a foundation for you all to be able to do that together.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's, I mean, obviously that's a big loss, but it is cool to hear to this day the impact that he has had on you, on numerous other swimmers. I'm going to pivot topics here. Another interesting part of your history is that your mom was in the UFC.
Yes.
Did that, so how did you first find out about that?
Yeah, so she's my stepmom. So she's married to my
Okay.
mom. And I met her when I was like 8 years old, I think. So when I just like started like kind of swimming.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's been a part of it all. And people thought like, because she's in the UFC, they're like, oh, like she's like super hardcore at home. Like, oh my gosh, like she's always training. And she actually made a rumor that I was running 5 miles a day. So people said that they were running 5 miles a day. I don't know. It was this crazy stuff. But yeah, it definitely gave me a lot of anxiety. I hated watching her fight. Like it was the worst ever. I'm sad she retired, but I'm also glad she did, because like it was really intense. Like just the weight cut, and just she had to eat like salmon and peas with no salt. Like boiled salmon or grilled salmon. Like it was just like terrible just watching her go through it and then having to go in a ring and fight someone. I was like, no, like this isn't, no. It was awful. She was amazing though. She was badass. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that my friends are really big into UFC, and I'll go over to their house and watch it with them because I like them and I like being around friends, but I do not enjoy watching the fight. I mean, I don't even have, a dog in the fight per se. Like my mom's not, or my stepmom's not fighting. I don't know these people, but it's just like, God, that looks so uncomfortable.
I don't know. It was, especially when you're like there in person, because we typically watched it like on TV. We never went because it would give my sister and I so much anxiety.
Oh, I can imagine.
So like one time we went in person and there's just like people were just mean, and so they're like start booing or like something. I'm like, that's my mom, like stop. Like I would just get so sad. But yeah, it was an interesting thing.
Man. And so what I heard earlier was that she was telling people, oh yeah, I make them run 5 miles a day, but really was she more chill at home? Like, did she ever, did you guys ever work out with her? Did the fact that she was in the UFC actually affect your physical personal life at all, or was that just not a thing?
I mean, a little bit. Like we would do, like when I was younger, we would do dryland with her with a few other of my teammates. Like we would all do it together. It was like probably a group of like 7 or 8 of us. And she was really intense, and I do not recommend having parents because that was not fun. I hated that. So that ended pretty quickly. But yeah, no, like there's nothing like people have this like thing about me and they're like, oh my gosh, she's like doing crazy things at home. No, I go home and I eat ice cream and pizza, and I'm a normal teenager. I do normal teenager things, and I really enjoy it. I'm like, that's what I'm trying to do, is just enjoy my teenage years and not take things so seriously. And I've definitely had the freedom to do that with my parents. They're just kind of like, just roll with it. Like, they're just like, whatever, Kennedy, like you do whatever you want, and I really appreciate it.
That seems nice. That seemed like kind of the deal with your parents when you were talking about them earlier, when you were describing your early years in the pool. And I think, when parents give their children the room to do their own thing, it makes, it gives them more of a sense of accomplishment, more accountability, and, making mistakes can be a good thing, because then if you make them on your own, you get to learn from them too.
Yep. That is like what my parents live by.
Nice. So yeah. So if you eat a whole pizza and a pint of ice cream in one night, and, you get to see how that feels the next day.
Yep. That's all on me. So definitely.
I love it. So that's, we thought that was cool when you committed to NC State. We did a little research, and our editor was like, I think her mom was in the UFC. That might be kind of cool. And so had to ask you about that. But
of course,
again, we'll pivot. We'll get back to you. You've been a good swimmer for a while. You mentioned that you're kind of all over the place in terms of your training. You have elite level freestyle, backstroke, butterfly. I am. They're all up to stuff. They're all pretty speedy. And you're only, you're entering your junior year in high school this year. Tell me about your breaststroke.
Okay, so I've actually been discussing this with my coach. He will not let me swim breaststroke. Like, he refuses. I don't think he wants to watch it. But I want to swim breaststroke so bad, like tapered, because I'm so interested to see what I can go. But I did have a dual meet with my high school team on Thursday, and we did the 2 medley relay, and I did the breaststroke leg for fun, and I went a 28. And so I was like, I really need a swim breaststroke. Darian won't let me, but that did make him think a little bit. And so I might be swimming breaststroke soon, like in November, suited up, which will be like the first time never. So I'm really interested to see what I can go. I want to swim the 100 breast, the 2 breast, no. 100 breast, maybe.
Okay, so let's give our listeners a little more context. Kennedy goes 200 in the 200 IM. You're 416 400 IM, and you go 28 apparently in the 50 breaststroke, which is that's serious speed. I was not a good swimmer. I was a very mediocre swimmer. That's faster than I ever went. I went a 29 in a 50 breast on a medley relay, and I was really stoked about that. You go 28. That's kicking. That's moving.
I felt good that day, so it was fun.
Nice. So let's get a little. I asked you the breaststroke question for fun. I didn't expect to get a 28-50 breast out of it. So that was that's fun. But so let's talk a little bit more seriously about your training. You have obviously now you have 4 really strong strokes. Were you brought up that way? Did you always kind of diversify in your training? Do you have a favorite stroke now or a favorite way to train now?
Yeah. I've always trained really like all over the place. Like I trained distance, I trained IM, I trained everything all the time, which I'm so glad that my coach did that, because it helps. Like I believe that like if you improve your worst stroke, you improve your best stroke. Like even if you're not training that stroke. And so I've always focused on training everything. And so
Good belief.
I train IM like all the time. Like this morning I trained IM, it was a hard set this morning, but no, I almost always train IM, and then sometimes I don't typically train breaststroke, but it depends on the day. IM, that's good enough. Like I just need breaststroke for my IM. I don't think I'll ever end up swimming the 100 breast, but who knows?
Yeah, never say never. If you're
right,
if you're going out in 28, who knows?
But I've always trained like just everything, and I really like it. It's just really made me enjoy swimming even more, just because I'm always trying new things, and it's fun to try new things. Like you can get bored with just training like backstroke all the time. And so it's good, like training everything. Sometimes it's a lot of IM and I get a little sick of it, but it helps for sure. But I'd say I definitely lean towards, I don't know necessarily training butterfly, but I do love racing butterfly. It's a really fun stroke to swim.
Yeah, it's really, really fun stroke to race. For sure. Yeah. You mentioned you lean towards racing, but I was a 200 butterflyer. I trained butterfly a lot, and racing butterfly was always fun. I was a practice swimmer. I would go best times at practice and then not do them in meets, but
that was pretty much me too. Yeah.
So let's get into some of your favorite memories. You're a junior national champion. You're an Arizona state champion. What's 1 or 2 favorite meets that you have been to in your career so far?
Yeah, I can definitely think of one. I was 14, and it was at sectionals in Mount Hood, in like July, I think. So it was like 2 years ago. And I swam the 200 back. That I think like my seat time going in was like a 2:26 or 2:25. I forgot something, or wait, no, 2:21. And then
okay. Is this spring or summer sectionals?
Summer. Yeah.
So this is long course. Okay.
And then I did prelims. It hurt really bad. 200 back in the morning on the first day. Not it.
It's
so bad. And so I went like 2:19, so I dropped a few seconds. And when you're 14, that's typical. Like you always drop time.
Typical.
Like it's you drop time like every race, tapered or not. Like you don't even taper. You're just swimming fast, which is fun. I miss those days. But that night, I don't even know what I was thinking. But I was racing against this girl. I think she's from China. Her name's Emi Morinuki. I think that's her name. And she was so fast. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to like go fast and like try and beat her. And she was like super muscular. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is scary. And I was so intimidated by her. So my coach, this is actually a really funny story. My coach was like, hey, like, why don't you just talk to her? Like people, like once you get to know people, they're not as scary. And so I was like, okay, like that sounds good. And so we're sitting in the chairs like before we like go up to race, like we do our walkout and stuff. And I was like, hi, like, how are you doing? And she's like, she looks at me, she's like, I was like, oh, what? And she's like, I don't speak English. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing. And I was like, no. And I was like, well, good luck. And she's like, you too. But it was really funny. But I think that experience just helped me be like, okay, like people aren't as scary. Like even just that small like conversation. And then I go into the race and I didn't beat her, but it was close. But I ended up going like my first trial cut. It was like before the times came out for 2020.
Okay.
So this was like it was like a few months before they came out. But I got like the 2016 trial cut. It was like a 2:14 something. And I was like super excited. And it was just like, it was such a good feeling because I came out and it was like the first race where I really was like, oh wow, like I need to stop like just doubting myself. Cause like anyone can do anything. Like literally the sky's the limit. Like you could, whatever you put your mind to, you could literally do. And since that day, like I've really thought of that. And just the amount of support I got from my teammates was just unreal. Like, and it just really set off like for a really great meet for both my teammates and I. And it was so fun. Like it was a really fun meet. That pool is amazing too. I love it.
Mount Hood, huh? That's like a pretty small town in Oregon, right?
Yeah. But it's like the prettiest pool ever. Like the pool is like blue. Like it looks like they dye the water. It's the weirdest thing ever. It's so pretty. It's like in a forest too.
Yeah, I've heard Mount Hood is very pretty because it's like in the middle of nowhere, but I didn't realize they had a pool. a long course pool.
Yeah. They even have like an indoor like warm down pool. It's like really fancy. I love it.
Wow. Yeah. I'll have to get out there one day. So hold on, let's go back to your swim. You went from a 2:21 to a 2:14 in one day. Yeah, 200-meter backstroke. Did you have a goal heading into that swim? I mean, did you even was an Olympic trials, essentially an Olympic trials cut even on your radar?
Not at all. I was not thinking about that whatsoever. Actually, my coach, I remember, she's like, just go like 2:17, like just get like right, like sort of like next, like as close as you can to the trial cut. Like that was just like get as close as you can. And yeah, I was not expecting it. It definitely did hurt though.
So what did your coach say after that swim?
They were speechless. They didn't. They're like, okay, all right, 2:14, okay.
So, yeah, okay, why not? Let's just keep the ball rolling.
I'm going to be a bit more ambitious about the times I'm giving you. You're always like that, but it's a 200 back. So you never know. Like it could either go really good or really bad. So I feel like there's no in between.
200 is a stroke or finicky for sure. So we talked a little bit about your training. I love asking people, do you have a favorite set? Do you have one practice that has stood out to you as like, okay, that's been like one of my best practices of all time? All right.
I definitely do. It's one of Ryan's sets. We did it a few times because I loved it so much. My teammates hated me for it. But it was like, I have it written down in my notes. I think if I can pull it up, but I do remember it was like 100. Wait, it was like, oh, I'm trying to think. It's like 4 rounds. You start off with a 400 IM. This sounds nuts, but you start off with a 4 IM and then you do 4 125s where it's like so confusing. It like might not make sense, but you go 25 stroke, 100 free. Oh, I'm getting your call. Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh my gosh. And it goes like 25 stroke, 100 free, 50 stroke, 75 free, 75 stroke, like going through that process. And then you do another 4 IM, and then you do that 5 times. And there's a 4 IM in between each like set of 4 125s. So I think it ended up being like 6 or 7. I don't know, but I loved it. I don't know why.
So,
Right.
So like the first time you go through that, is there like the stroke and the 4 125s is butterfly?
Yeah. So I pretty much,
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so
then
there's
backstroke and then.
Yeah. So there's 5 400 IMs, I think.
I think that, yeah, that makes sense.
But it was like the best set ever. I don't know why. I like got out of practice and I was like, I loved that set so much. And my coach was like, what? He's like, you're crazy. I don't know why. I thought I was crazy too. Like, I understand. Like, it typically wouldn't be a very fun set, but I liked it.
So the 400 IMs, are they descend? Are they all fast? Was there any goal for those?
I think it was like focusing on like a lap per like stroke. So like the first lap of each stroke was fast, and the second, third, fourth, and then the last one was obviously all fast because that's how swimming works. You're always fast at the end.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that sounds like a killer set, but if you liked it, then there you go.
That was good.
Nice. All right. So Kennedy, to wrap things up here, we talked about how your last couple weeks have been going. You're swimming 5 to 7 every morning, which, like you said, it's a grind, but grateful to get the pool time. What are you looking forward to? You mentioned a meet in November. Take me through your next couple weeks, couple months. Do you have short-term goals for that period? And if so, what are they?
Yeah. So we're starting to wrap up our high school season. So we have districts next weekend. And so I'm pretty much swimming. That's our only qualifying meet for state. So I'll be swimming the 100 back and 2 IM again, like I did last year. Because I've really enjoyed the 2 IM lately. And I just learned a new thing, wearing a nose plug. That's like the secret. I don't know. I love it. Like, I don't know. I tried it for the first time a few months ago and I was like, I'm doing that every 2 IM. Like, it was great. That bucket turn, no.
I get it.
After that backstroke, I'm dead. So it really helps. But I have districts. It's like 4 meets in a row, like every weekend starting next weekend. So I have districts, state, and then I'm pretty sure it's US Open in Irvine. And then we have a Ryan Kett Open. So we have like a meet every year now for him, which is great. I love it. And I don't really know how that meet's going to work, but that's the meet I might swim the 100 breast, which is exciting. But we'll see what happens. But hopefully he actually enters me in it. But, I definitely am looking forward to swimming the 100 back and 2 back at US Open. because now they have those time standards out to make the national junior team. And that's something I'm really looking forward to. And it'll be really interesting because it's only a time final meet. And so you're only swimming each race once. You get one shot. So we'll see how it goes. I'll just put a bunch of pressure on myself. I usually work well under pressure. So hopefully I just like make myself really nervous and I'll be good.
That I really am hoping that works out for you.
Thank you.
Well, Kennedy, thank you so much for taking the time out of your morning to sit down and talk with me for a while. It was really great getting to know you, and maybe we'll have to check in after this slew of meets and see how the breaststroke goes, see how the timed finals at US Open go. Yeah.
It'll be very interesting.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.